here today to share with you about his experiences and his insights in studying Australia. I'll pass it to Zaif.
Okay, so I've been told one of my microphones go here, here. Ragolta. Okay, mero kuda microphone adu nagata. Okay, adu naga. Okay, so me, if it's burn to Korea and I'll feel slightly less awkward. I think the more people there are in front. Come everyone. Korea to all the Korean mess. Come and join. Okay, so I didn't know if I would be sitting or standing and how many people I would be speaking to. Now that I see a couple of people, I feel like this is more going to be a conversation. Though I'm not going to start out by blabbering too much, and then I think hopefully it can be like a conversation that we have back and forth, which might be better for everyone. Okay, so I've made a couple of notes so that I don't forget anything. Let's see. Is there any? Okay, so there's nothing behind me. There's no slides. What I'm meant to be talking about is studying law in Australia. And one of the things that I want to start by saying is I like to decompress any title that I have whenever someone asks me to speak. So studying law in Australia, the first thing I want to speak about is studying, and then law, and then Australia, and then studying law in Australia. So the first thing I want to say about studying is all of you are adults now. You've finished your O-levels and A-levels. Congratulations, you don't have to study anymore. So, but I'm guessing you have some sort of interest to study, otherwise you wouldn't be here at an education fair on a Friday night, most likely. Okay, so you have a general interest to study, nice. So we are on the same page. What I can speak of are my experiences, and hopefully you'll be able to take away some things from my experiences. And my starting point would be studying generally, and after you finish your A-levels or during your A-levels, you'll be thinking about if you want to study any further or if you want to start a career directly. And generally, if you are to start a career right after your A-levels, it's not very easy. It's not very easy to get hired, and the starting pays, or the starting salaries are quite low, and so you might not be very much interested in starting right away. And another thing that I was thinking about is I didn't feel like I was competent enough. I didn't feel like I was confident enough to start right after my A-levels. And the next reason was because I wanted to study law, and if I want to be a lawyer, it was a prerequisite actually for me to have a law degree in order to practice. So if you're doing engineering, if you're studying medicine, if you're doing law, if you're doing accounting, I feel like if you're doing something professional, it is important for you to have a basic qualification before which you are not allowed to practice within your profession. So that's another reason why I chose to go and study after my A-levels. Then one of the other things, like I said, in terms of competency, I didn't feel like I was competent enough to get into the work environment, and I sort of thought I would like to start thinking more critically about things and expand my horizons further. And one of the other things is this is a very small place that we are all living in, and I felt like I knew, studying in Iskandar, then going on to CHSC, I felt like I knew almost everyone around me, and a lot of the dialogues were becoming monotonous with everyone. A lot of the thoughts were quite similar to everyone, and I thought if I go ahead and study a bit further, I would start to get different perspectives in life generally. So that was another reason why I thought, okay, this whole studying thing might not be that bad. Then, okay, so getting my title out, so studying law in Australia. The next thing here is studying and law in Australia, so I'm getting out to the region aspect. Why am I not studying here in Maldives? Like I said, I want to get out. I want to see and explore other opportunities abroad. And there are many different reasons why you might want to do this. Generally, when you are here, you are confined to your own space within your family, and you might want to learn who you are besides your family as well. A lot of the things that you have been you've been exposed to might slowly start changing when you go and study, and it's good to start hearing your own voice and starting to really listen to your own voice when you go abroad. And some of these things can only be found when you actually have the ability, the quietness to listen to your own thoughts, I would say. And another very important thing in this respect is you learn to do very basic things things that you would generally think that you would know how to do until you realize that you don't know how to do them. For me, one of the things is my mom was nice enough to teach me how to cook and clean generally, but with washing, for some reason, when I went to my degree, I realized I didn't really wash anything. That part was just taken care of for some reason. And the first time when I washed things, I was smart enough to separate some colors, but I wasn't smart enough to separate all of my colors. And all of my, I feel like some of the red towels and things I had got mixed up with some of my gray shirts. I also didn't know that there were different settings of heat on the laundry machine and that things shrink quite a lot. Didn't know how I could reverse all of those things, but then that's another reason why I want to go and study in hindsight to know that I can actually deal with some of those things. But on a more serious note, there are a lot of things that you are forced to do when you go abroad. For example, one of the first things that I had to do was open a bank account. When I left the country, I didn't have a bank account here, but going abroad, learning how to open your bank account without your parents, and if you don't read what type of bank account you're opening, you might learn through a mistake that maybe your money is locked on a fixed deposit or something for quite a while. But hopefully you'll have quite a nice teller at the bank who is going to explain to you how everything can be done quite simply. So that's one thing. The other thing is finding a place to live by yourself. It's also quite a challenge. Here, once again, you are sort of born here and then you live with your parents. For quite a while, I don't think most of us actually think about renting a space by ourselves, dealing with landlords, which is often not easy, if I were to say the least. And when you go abroad, it's even more difficult, I would say. And to deal with these people, to pay all of these people a lot of money, and they wouldn't always be treating you fairly because you are from a different country. They'll be making up quite a lot of rules, which I would not say are always in line with the law. But then when you go abroad and deal with these situations, only then would you learn how to stand up for yourself and actually know how to go on about these matters. And another very big thing that I learned was budgeting. So when you go abroad for study, even if you're relying on self-funding and savings, even if you're going through a fully funded scholarship, even if you're taking a student loan, you'll be given quite a lot of money at the same time. It's going to be a lump sum given to pay your university fees, as well as your stipend, for example, for a semester. And if you are quite lazy and want to eat takeout and go out every day during the first few weeks, you will run out of money quite quickly. And then you can't call higher education ministry and say, hey, I've spent most of my loan money on takeout, can I have some more? You'd be quite lucky if they give the second disbursement, even if you were to manage it quite well. So you'll have to be quite careful with that. So all in all, what does this do? I feel like it prepares you to be a generally responsible person, which isn't quite a high bar. It's quite simple to be a generally responsible person that generally wakes up at a certain amount of time, that knows how to manages their budget, make your bed, open up your bank account, deal with landlords, manage your expenses, and also to know how to deal with people from different parts of the world, from different perspectives, and to be tolerant of different perspectives, which is, I think, something that we don't find ourselves being or doing a lot here, unfortunately. Whenever I open Facebook, I find extremely funny comments on political posts, which I think, if you don't think too deeply, are quite funny, but if you think quite deeply, are not very funny, quite offensive. Okay, so that's my short take on studying abroad. Take the leap, go out and find for yourself. If it's not for you, you can always come back home. Home will always be home. You can always come back home if you don't like it. And I think a lot of people put too much pressure on themselves, thinking, I should only go if I can finish the whole thing. No, go for one semester, and if you don't think it's for you, come back. Come back, work for a while, stay with your parents, and if you feel like never going back, don't ever go back. You can only know your experience after you try it, and then if you want to continue, go back and continue. Yes, you can defer your course. Yes, the ministry will allow you to defer your course to an extent. In fact, you would be quite surprised on their whole deferring scheme. They will give the disbursements later on as well if you go for the student loan. So try it out. leave Male if you want to. And if you're thinking about opportunities, getting discounts and scholarships, you're at the right place on a Friday night. I'm sure you can speak to all of these people here, and they'd be quite nice to tell you that there are lots of opportunities. Even in my case, after doing my undergrad, I'll actually not jump to that, I'll go to my undergrad now. So I went to UK for my undergrad, and I studied law there. One of the reasons is because the UK is regarded to be a place of high quality in terms of education. And in studying law, I felt like I wanted to be at the place that's quite close to the source when I'm studying the English legal system. And I think generally it was a worthwhile experience. I learned quite a lot being there, learned how to deal with a lot of different types of people. And after that, studying law in Australia, I think finally comes into the picture. I came back to Male, and then I thought, okay, do I want to start immediately, or do I want to expand my horizons further and stretch myself a little bit further once again? I went with the latter. I want to study a little bit more. One of the reasons for this is I wanted to specialize. I didn't feel like just being in corporate law is going to be enough, because there are a lot of lawyers here in Mali now. There are a lot of lawyers. And this was around the time that the whole bar exam thing was coming around as well, where all the lawyers were in limbo. I think there were around 277 lawyers that were unable to do the bar and just had no idea what was happening for around over 2 years. And I thought, okay, while they are figuring this out, and until they figure it out, I would just be a legal secretary, even though I have a degree, while someone who graduated maybe 3 months before me would be a lawyer because of how the system works here. And so I thought, okay, let's try this whole master's thing. And I thought, let's research a little bit about Australia this time and try my best with Australia. And then I went through Eduvest, or Study Australia here, and they were very kind enough to help me in a lot of ways. So a lot of the difficulties that I just mentioned about going to study abroad includes things like the paperwork, the application process, the visas, what else? Dealing with student admissions. And dealing with student admissions is a challenge in itself, as in I would wake up a lot and just think I don't want to deal with the student admissions at a lot of universities, because they make things much harder than it needs to be. You would need a degree to deal with some of these things, I would say. And what happens is, when you want to focus only on your studies, Eduvest was actually helping me to just sleep and just pick my specialization area, and they actually helped me, they helped walk me through all of the different steps that were there to make the application, go through the visa process. And I think I actually had something like 2 months to get the visa as well. And if I was applying to UK, that would have been impossible unless I flew to Sri Lanka and did a whole thing. But then they somehow managed. I don't know how they managed, but they somehow managed. So they were doing their magic. So another thing that they helped me with was when I was going there, I didn't know that I was going to be applying for any scholarships or anything. But in the process, they were able to actually look at my transcript and my grades from not my degree, but from my A-levels. So they were able to go through to the bottom to my A-levels and actually find out a scholarship scheme that I could get at the university using my A-levels. So I actually didn't expect that. So it was a very nice surprise that I got upon going there. And I think it was called the UWA Global Students Excellence Scholarship or something like that. And it was nice. Like I said, when you apply for the government loan scheme, they don't take into account all of these costs that you'd be saving. So anything that you save from your scholarship is extra money that you can have to either pay back the loan if you're a responsible person, or to eat out a lot if you are like me. Okay. Then what are some of the differences that I would think of studying in Australia versus the UK? One of the things that come into my mind, and my experience, like I said, I didn't do my undergrad in Australia, so I can't speak about an undergrad. But generally, for my master's, the quality of education for me personally was better in Australia. That's what I felt. And one of the reasons for that is my class in the UK for my undergrad had 200 students, versus my class in my master's had just a handful of students generally. I think my first unit had something like 30 students in. And all of the students that were there for the master's program were very much passionate and interested about the specific niche that I was going for. Whereas in an undergrad scheme, you would have a lot of students that are just there because their parents told them to. Because, for example, if you were a British student, the British loan scheme would automatically help you to go to uni, and then right after their A-levels, if they don't know what to do, they'll just very quickly go for their degree without really thinking about anything. And so you had a lot of students who were just figuring things out in their undergrads, versus in a master's scheme, these are students that are really serious about their stuff, and you're able to immerse yourselves in conversations that you would not otherwise be able to if you don't go for a master's. So if you've done your undergrad, I would highly urge all of you to do a master's if you know your specialization. If you don't know your specialization, wait for a while, wait here, try to figure things out, read extra materials, and just try to research as much as you can about which area that you are going to be specializing in. Also, to put less pressure on all of you, what you're going to be specializing in isn't necessarily what you're going to be doing for the rest of your life. I'd be quite surprised if I were to be practicing law for the rest of my life as well. How I thought about it is, what am I going to be doing for the next 5 to 10 years? Most likely I'll be practicing law for the next 5 to 10 years. And even after that, what's a cool tool that I can have to help with the general things I'm doing? I thought a law degree would help. So put less pressure on yourselves, I would say generally. Okay, then the other thing specifically about UWA, and if you're choosing a university like ANU, UWA, University of Sydney, University of Melbourne, or Monash University as well, some of these really higher level universities have professors that are, I would say, the leaders in their field. And my main professor, Professor Nolan Sharkey, is the tax expert at the UN. And my other professor, Rick Crever, he's also a visiting professor at Harvard and Oxford as well. So when you specialize, you would learn the field of specialists are quite small in the world, and it's like the same group of people that are almost everywhere at the high level places. So they will teach a semester at Oxford and then come to University of Melbourne, for example. So if you go to University of Melbourne, then you're having the same level of connection and quality as if you're going to Harvard, besides the name, of course. So if you want the name, go to Harvard, okay? So what happens when you're able to connect with some of these people? There's a saying, it's about who you know, right, rather than what you know. So doing a master's, of course, you learn the what aspect as well, in addition to learning how to clean and things. But when you are able to speak to some of these people, they are then able to connect you with people that can help you make great leaps. So some of my professors helped me get connected with the Oxford University, for example, and I was able to publish one of my research papers at the University of Oxford. And I wouldn't have been able to do that had I not been given that connection. If I just wrote to the University of Oxford, there's a very long process. I don't think I have the energy to go through the whole process because it's a really long process. But when my professor, he didn't even ask me, he one day wrote a paper, he read a paper that I wrote, and then he just said, hey, I've CC'd you in with the professor at Oxford. I think you guys would hit it off great. Why don't you guys talk about this? And then we spoke about it. And then very quickly, I was able to get through a lot of bureaucracy and get my paper out, which I wouldn't have been able to do had I not been there speaking to some of these people. So I would say that makes a world of difference, because coming back here, it's made a very big impact in my life. So what has my life been after coming back? I would say, let's see. I'm the same person. I generally talk about the same things. I have the same friends as O-levels and A-levels. It's just that now we've studied our degrees and masters, and we are able to now think critically. So when you go for your education, when you go and study your degree or your masters, it's not just about the content. So I don't know if I remember all the cases I studied for contract law. I probably remember just one case which all business students learn about, I think, called Donoghue and Stevenson, if any business students. Okay, it's a snail case. Oh, I got one nod. Okay. But other than that, I don't really remember anything. It's mostly about how you learn to approach different problems. And once you learn how to approach different problems, you don't forget that. It's like learning how to walk. It's like learning how to run. Once you learn, you don't forget. And now, now that I have actually covered some of these areas like GST, when the new GST law came out, I was really eager to read it. And I feel like I might be one of the few people that might be saying that in this room. So I was really excited. I woke up that morning and I put on the GST law and I was reading it from A to Z and wondering, hey, what's this all about? And then I read it and I got extremely upset and I thought, wait, we're running out of money in our country and this is just a random way for us to get more money, which is going to really hurt poor people in our country. Of course, everyone knew that it's going to be hurting all the poor people in our country if we had a GST increase, but not everyone was talking about it as confidently. So I started writing. And what would a paper be? A paper is a long, angry rant, basically. And I wrote my long, angry rant, and then the IBFT went on and purchased my I wouldn't say empty, but my long rant, and then people from different countries were able to read my long rant. Okay, so what does that do? That hopefully builds awareness, and even though not everyone is excited to read about GST, at least amongst the accountants and amongst the lawyers, there was a certain level of dialogue that was established about how bad this change is. It's not that an increase in GST is bad, it's how we did it so quickly that was what was bad. So I'm not going to speak about GST any further, don't worry. But what I'm trying to say is, what you will learn is whenever a new development comes out, you will be learning how it's going to impact your economy and the society that's here. Some of my friends who did digital marketing, they told me by the end of their degree, some of the things that they studied were already irrelevant because of how digital marketing changes every day, because it's a very contemporary area. Fortunately for me, law doesn't change that fast, so it's very good for me. So I would say find an opportunity and go and study if you know what you want to study. If you don't know what you want to study, I feel like there's another talk about what you should be studying here. That's tomorrow. Come to that talk and hopefully they will help you learn what you're going to study later. If you want to get more opportunities, a lot of people just complain saying there's no way to go, there's nowhere to study, there's no funding available. I would say you're at a fair that's talking about study, scholarships, and all of these things. You're at the right place. Start talking about it, keep your eyes and ears open, and you will find an opportunity and you will be able to go and study. So that's all I have to say. Let's open up for question and answers now, if that's okay, Hida? Okay. How long did I speak for? Nice.
Thank you, Zaif. Anyone of you have any questions?
Do you guys want to start so that everyone? Oh, okay.
You said your name is Zaif, right?
Zaif.
Zaif.
Yeah.
Did you do a thought masters or research based masters?
What did you say first? What?
Thought masters or research based masters?
The course was called a coursework-based masters.
Coursework.
Yeah, but I would say that's not a very good title for it, because I mean, it was taught and delivered. The model of the program was me. Is it okay if I speak in the end? Yeah, okay. How the model was made was it was made for people that were working, and so people that were working were not able to come for a whole year and study during that time. So each unit was 1 week. So everyone that was working there would take a week of leave, and they would come there. It would be every morning from 9 a.m. until 6 p.m. intensively. We would be taught all of the concepts, and then we will get assessed 2 weeks after, and then that unit was over. So that was the model we had.
So, based on your area of studies, how do you go about deciding whether you should go with a coursework based masters or research based masters?
What would be the difference between a coursework and research-based masters? I'm unable to understand the difference yet.
In coursework based masters, there should be more classes.
Okay.
More classes, right?
Mm.
In research based masters, I think it's mostly just research and meeting up with your supervisor.
Mm.
But for me personally, I'm a little bit confused
Mm.
deciding which one to go. That's why I'm just asking.
Do you enjoy sitting in a room and researching for long periods of time?
I'd rather work with like-minded people. Yes.
Yeah, so I would say something that's taught is better. So how I had it was everyone is in a class and everyone studies together, and then you would have either a project you deal with, like you're solving a problem together, like a case, or you would write a research answer by yourself. So you had the taught classroom environment, and then you go away by yourself and write your own paper. I also had a dissertation where that was completely by myself and my supervisor. So it was a balance. I had both.
I think that's good.
Yeah. I think I liked it because otherwise I would have gone crazy.
Thank you.
Any other questions? No? Hida, would you like to ask a question?
Running out of questions?
Yeah, no questions. So I think that will be all.
Any questions, you guys? No questions. My friends don't have any questions.
Oh, I think they should actually ask you a question.
I talked to him too much, so
That's good. Okay. Well, thank you, Zaif, so much for this informative session. I think everyone enjoyed your insight and your living and studying in Australia. It was quite fun. And if you need tips on separating the colors, you should really talk to a woman.
Okay, good idea.
Well, thank you so much, Zaif.